This is Out of Bounds. If it's happening in the world of golf, we're talking about it. Coverage, debate, discussion, pro golf and local golf. Let's do it. This is Out of Bounds. And here are your hosts, Nate Sharman and Josh Durso.
All right, it's time to talk odds. Welcome back to Out of Bounds. Josh Durso and Nate Sharman here getting you ready for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. But first, we have got some golf news. Team Europe is getting familiar leadership heading into the 2027 Ryder Cup, right, Nate?
Yep, Luke Donald's named captain, as we all expected, right, for Team Europe to go back to their captain that's won the last two Ryder Cups. He has a chance to make history, as he could be the first captain ever in Ryder Cup history to win three in a row, to go three-peat, and I think they'll be the heavy favorite in their manner. I mean, we talk about how hard it is to win a Ryder Cup away, and Europe just did it, but still, I think they'll be a favorite there in their manner in Ireland. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the United States comes back with. We've heard the Masters be talked about as kind of the deadline, right, for Tiger Woods to make that decision. And I think the U.S. will use that kind of Masters time to make their decision on who will be the captain. Josh, the more that I think about it, I don't think Tiger Woods will do it. I think he would have said yes by now. I think he's more focused on that return that we've talked about, right, the return to golf. But what do you think? Do you think Tiger will maybe take it in 27? Maybe what do you think? If you don't think Tiger will take it, who do you think will be the captain in 2027?
I think he should take it because I think he would be everybody's first choice. And I think
for sure,
given that Team Europe is going back to the well one more time with Luke Donald, I think it's more imperative than ever that the U.S. makes some kind of major change here. And I'm not saying that's no disrespect to past captains or other potential captain options, but the Team USA just hasn't had much success, right? Like something big needs to change. I think the players need something different or someone different to rally to, and I think they would rally to Tiger. But for Team Europe, I get it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If Luke Donald wants to keep doing it, let him have at it. I mean, who else would you pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what they always said. If Luke Donald wants it, and I think he'll want it, he's going to keep going. It's not like he's out. He's not like he's old at all. He can still play. I mean, he still plays his PGA Tour stops every once in a while. So pretty cool to see. I don't think Tiger will take it for 2027. I think he's focused on this return. But what I've always said is I think in 2029, when it's back in the States, I think that's a real chance for Tiger Woods to take it. Kind of a couple more years into his golf life here, and when he gets a little bit more stable, I think it's certainly a possibility. But yeah, Team Europe going back to Luke Donald. I think the U.S., if it's not going to be Tiger Woods, they're going to be looking at guys like Steve Stricker, Brian Snedeker on the President's Cup captain this year. He could be maybe thrown around. He'll probably be on the supportive cast, but he probably won't be the captain. I think Jim Furyk's another name that we've heard a lot, but yeah, I go back to Steve Stricker for sure.
Really? You think he's the option? When I hear that crop of names, I think Jim Furyk is the one that stands out for me.
Stricker won the Ryder Cup as the captain at Whistling Straits. He wasn't he wasn't a vice captain at Bethpage last year. Furyk was, I believe. Yep. I think so. I could see them going that direction, right? To how they kind of groom guy before they make him the captain, right? I think it's a little quick for Snedeker as he does the President's Cup this year. So we'll see what happens.
Fair. It would also be a lot of work going back-to-back years too as a captain. I would imagine that would be quite
it's not that much
lift.
work. Well, yeah, I guess what you mean.
Well.
Right.
Yeah, they got a different thing going on with that team, though. Let's talk API. As I said off the top, Arnold Palmer Invitational this weekend. My favorite golf course that isn't in South Carolina. There's my caveat. What are you looking at here this week?
Yeah, it's definitely a favorite for a lot of people on PGA Tour, right? It's one of the harder stops, right? If you look at PGA Tour stops, it seems like the last few years, you saw Scottie win at 15 under, but you also saw Scottie win at 5 under, right? So it really ranges over the last few years. But yeah, one of the harder PGA Tour stops, like I mentioned, Scottie's your favorite, around 3-1 on the odds books. Rory comes in as a second favorite, right around 9-1. So yeah, it could be Scottie's tournament to win. As I mentioned, he's won it twice. He won it in 2025 when he went on that run, right? When he won pretty much everything on the Florida swing, right? He won in 2022 at 5 under, in 2025 at 15 under. Russell Henley won last year at 11 under. So we could see it go back to Scottie this year, but as you hear in my picks, I don't think Scottie is ready to win yet, just quite yet. But definitely, I'm excited to see some lower score or some tougher scores, right, Josh? And I know you are too, right?
Yeah, yeah, you know me. I'm always looking for something that doesn't feel quite like a birdie fest, especially when we get to this point in the season, because it feels like the first, handful of events on the PGA Tour schedule as it exists now feature a lot of high scores. But you know what? I think there's a few really interesting storylines here that we could get a payoff for. Collin Morikawa finished runner-up
Yeah.
last year. He broke out of win jail, so he's got a victory under his belt. Rory can get to 30 wins. Scottie Scheffler can get to 21 wins. Russell Henley, defending champ. My question for you with Russell was, where's he been?
Yeah, he seems the guy that usually is a model of consistency, but he hasn't had his best start to the year, right? But I'm sure he'll figure it out as he gets into more familiar territory, right?
Yeah. If I threw at you a prediction here, what do you think the winning score winds up at?
I think right around that 10 to 15 number, right? I think you'll see you saw last week PGA National where conditions were a little bit wet, right? And they went in that 17 under number where Nico won, right? So I think between that 10 and 15 number is a good spot. Where are you thinking?
My gut's telling me it's going to be lower. I'm thinking somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. I
Ooh,
for some reason I just think that's where we end up, and it might make the broadcast a little less interesting. But as we've seen from ratings over the last month, and then back into last season, PGA Tours had no problems getting eyeballs on it, so that won't hurt things too much, I don't think.
yeah, exactly. And before we get to our pick scenario, one thing I forgot to mention to you, and one thing I forgot to write down here is Justin Thomas making his return to the PGA Tour this week. Pretty exciting there. So it's another good storyline.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where his game is, because obviously he's been out for a bit now. Was battling some little oddball injuries. For a guy who had previous to that been pretty healthy overall, it'll be interesting to see how he comes back here.
Yeah, definitely. And let's get to that pick spot. I'm going with two picks this week. There's two guys I couldn't really I couldn't really decide who I liked better, so I'm bringing two picks in addition to my long shot this week. And it starts towards the top of the board for me.
Okay.
Skipping Scottie Scheffler, of course, like I mentioned, but go with Tommy Fleetwood. I think I go with him a good amount, right? And he's got 9 starts here. This is one of the courses they play most consistently on the PGA Tour. I think somewhat like the last 40 years they've played or something like that. And he's T11 last year. He's got a couple top 10s in his 2 starts this year. So I'm looking at the European Tommy Fleetwood. We'll see if he comes out in some Pro Shop merch this week, as he's still searching for that apparel brand, right? So we saw him in some of the Pebble merch not too long ago. But yeah, there's my first pick. And then my other one is a guy I don't pick very often, and I teased him on Monday in our Monday show, right? But Patrick Cantlay. I think he comes in at 33 to 1. He's only played here 3 times, right? He came in T4 in 2023. He was in the 30th region in 24 and 25. He hasn't had the greatest year so far, T34 at the Genesis, but he was T14 at Pebble. So Josh, I think he can sort of use that to kind of propel himself, right? He seems like a guy that plays well in Florida. And also, we talked about Collin Morikawa getting out of wind jail. Let's see if we can get another guy out of wind jail. Patrick Cantlay famously has not won since 2022. I think he's way, way, way past overdue at this point to get a victory in the PGA Tour.
Yeah, it's wild to think that it's been 3.5, 4 years since he won. My winner pick, believe it or not, I'm going back to tried and true. Scottie Scheffler. It's his week to lose. I think this is a place. Obviously, as you mentioned, he won in 22 and 24. Maybe he's got an even year thing going on where he can't win in the odd years.
Yeah.
He can only win the API in those even years. So 2026 could be his. Also, worth noting, almost every year that he has rattled off a really strong stretch in the middle of the PGA Tour season, it has taken 5, 6, 7-ish starts for him to get going. And he usually gets that first win around then. I know he's already won this year, but I think it goes without saying that with the way he's been playing in his opening rounds, the last several starts, that he's due to break away from that. And this, I think, is a place where he can certainly do that. Scottie Scheffler is plenty comfortable at Bay Hill. Who's your who do you have for a sleeper pick?
I'm looking at Jason Day. I saw him down the odds board. I think he was 65 to 1, a 13-time PGA Tour winner, a guy that's reached number 1, a guy that has all the pedigree in the world, right? He's won here too. He's played here 13 times, Josh. He won here back in 2016.
Yeah.
He was T2 at the Amex this year. He's in decent form, and a guy like Jason Day, I have trouble not picking a guy, with that big a pedigree, right? If it isn't for vertigo and the back issues that he's dealt with, Josh, I think the sky was the limit for Jason Day. A guy that lit the world on fire back a while ago, and he's still making his way through the PGA Tour, right? He still has a lot of good starts and a lot of good finishes left in him. So I think I'm going with the Australian Jason Day, 65-1.
Yeah, I think a couple weeks ago when we were talking about picks, I was offended at where Chris Gotterup was on the odds board. And once again, two-time winner this season, Chris Gotterup is sitting at 45-1. Adam Scott is also sitting 45-1. And I'm just going by what I've seen recently out of these guys. I think that's crazy. It's crazy for them to be so far down the board. You look at who's in front of them, and I don't think it's really hard to argue that at least Chris Gotterup should be ahead of some of those other names, probably in the say 28-33-1 odd range. But I'm not a bookkeeper. I guess it's not my decision to make. But Chris Gotterup at 45-1, huge value. Adam Scott at 45-1 as well, I think is a good sleeper. One of the oddball prop bets I wanted to throw at you because I wanted to see if you would take it or not. Would you take this? 4-1 odds that there will be a playoff this weekend. So it's around 17% probability. Bay Hill hasn't had a playoff since 1999, even though 7 of the last 10 winners have only won by 1 stroke. Would you take that 4-1?
I would take, I just look. I don't think there probably won't be a playoff. The statistics point towards no, but that 4-1 number is a juicy one, right? To hear that plus money. So yeah, I think they're about due for a playoff though. Now that I think about more, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, when 70% of the last 10 winners have only won by 1 stroke, it's close, right? So
Right.
I think if Scottie Scheffler isn't the one winning, because sometimes when he wins by 4 or 5 strokes. If it's not him, I could see a playoff, and I would probably at 4-1, I would probably take that. But
Well, the thing is in these elevated events
when
there's only 60 guys on Sunday, with these elevated events, you don't see as many playoffs, right? Because the guys sort of disperse themselves a lot more because there's not as many guys, right?
Yeah.
So that's certainly something to look at.
Yeah. As always, I've got my 3-1 prop for you here. 3 players, all with the same odds, 100-1. Sahith Theegala, Nico Echeverria, or Max Grazerman. Who are you taking?
Sahith has showed me something this year. I think it's been a little bit since he's won and he's trying to figure out where he is, right? But I think I like the way that Sahith kind of goes about his business, right? He brings his family on the road with him, and I think that's really cool how supportive they are of him. So I'm going with Sahith in that threesome category, though. I think it's gonna get tough on Nico. He'll have a good finish, but I don't think he'll have a high finish. But I think he'll definitely have a good finish. So I'm looking at Sahith out of those 3.
Interesting. Nico coming off a win. Sahith and Max both had top 25 finishes at the Genesis, so they're all playing well. Just a matter of who's going to put it together. I'm actually pulling for Nico to have a good performance coming out of his win. I know there's probably going to be a little bit of a lag for him, but I think he keeps the momentum going and finishes best out of those 3. What else are you looking at this weekend for professional golf?
It's a good segue here for Nico Echeverria, a former winner at the Puerto Rico Open, right? He won it back in 2023 at the Puerto Rico Open. This is an interesting springboard for guys, right? Because you saw in 2020 Victor Hovland win, so you can kind of on these opposite field events, you kind of see you don't have to fight against guys like Scottie Scheffler, right, or Rory McIlroy. You can kind of get in the winner's circle and get that 2-year exemption and get those FedEx Cup points. So this is a really good opportunity for some of these lower tier guys, right, to sort of get this victory. So like I said, 300 FedEx Cup points, a 2-year exemption on tour, along with the $700,000 paycheck, right, for these guys that can win the Puerto Rico Open. So we'll see. We can usually see a good story coming out of the Puerto Rico Open, and I'm just really interested to see how John Daly II plays. I'm really, really intrigued by that in his first PGA Tour event.
Yeah, definitely will be interesting to see. Interesting. Will you be watching any LIV golf this weekend? Starts tonight late over in Hong Kong.
Probably. I mean, I don't know if it starts late for us. It's harder. I think, when they were back on the other tournaments, right? They were starting, more towards the 8 or 9 o'clock range on the East Coast, and now they're starting, I think, around midnight, and that just makes it really challenging for me. I'm not really a night owl, so we'll see when that happens. I'll see it in the morning, kind of what happened, and But yeah, I always like to watch a few holes on Live to kind of see what's going on and see what, be able to talk about it a little bit stronger. So we'll see what happens. I think all eyes are pointed to Anthony Kim, right, to see what he's going to do post win, his first win back on professional golf. So we'll see what happens there with him. But is there anything you're watching for in that event?
No, because I don't do tape delay golf and I don't watch golf in the middle of the night. So that makes it pretty simple for me.
Another big storyline, though, is John
it's one
Rahm
of
with
those.
all these big comments he's had. So we'll see how he plays.
Yeah, this morning he was quoted talking about the deal that was presented to him and some other players. Obviously, a bunch of other players took the deal from the DP World Tour to play in about a half dozen events. John Rahm basically went on offense, calling it extortion, saying that what they were demanding was too much, rattled off all the different things that he didn't like about the deal that was presented to him and his people, but then said at the very end, if they just changed the number of events that are required to be played from 6 to 4, that he would sign tomorrow. So who the hell knows? I don't really get it. I don't know why he's choosing to die on this hill. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. He was kind of alluding to the idea that he didn't want to play in that many more events. But at the end of the day, if you care enough to make a huge stink or fuss out of your status on the DP World Tour, then are we really going to die on the hill of 2 events? Like, it's essentially he's essentially saying 2 events are the difference between what he would be willing to accept and what is unacceptable and extortion. So I don't know. Like, to me, it's just a lot. But we'll see what happens, and we'll see if maybe he can get out of that runner-up place and finally get a win over there. It's been a while since he's been in the winner's circle. So we'll see.
Well, John Rahm has proved that what he says doesn't necessarily mean it, right? He's told he's told it time and time again that he wasn't going to Live, and then he went to Live. So, John Rahm likes to say things and do the other things. So we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, I guess we will. Hey, that is going to do it for this episode of the pod. We'll be back on Monday after we wrap up at Bay Hill. And if you want to see more, follow us over on TikTok. We're posting there in between episodes. And of course, it's an easy way to let us know what you're thinking if you drop a comment there. Hope everybody has a great weekend. You know the drill. Whether it's down the middle or out of bounds, keep on swinging.